Welcome back to the Team Hybrid Racing YouTube channel. Today we're finally going to get started on our newest project, dubbed the Redneck Supra. For those of you that haven't caught the last few episodes, we picked up a 2000 Ford Mustang, and our plan is to drop in this Gen 1 Atlas 4200. The Atlas 4200 is a straight six, dual overhead cam, hoss of a motor. It's very tall, very long, so it's going to take a bit of work to get this dude to fit into that engine bay. We're also putting together our 5-speed manual transmission here on the floor behind me from Colorado. It'll bolt up right to this motor. We do have to order a custom flywheel and clutch, which we'll handle that later. But for now, our main focus is getting this thing in the engine bay, removing that front sump oil pan, and figuring out how we're gonna make our 5-cylinder Colorado pan fit. Now, if you watched the first episode where we announced this project, the Mustang does have a tubular K member, so hopefully that offers up some space, but there's only one way to find out. So let's jump on in and get started. All right, so in the first few episodes, we pulled this out of the Envoy that I picked up for $300 running and driving. So we know that this thing does have oil in it. I haven't drained it out yet because I wanted to wait until this moment where we're gonna pull this oil pan off. Again, all of these 4200s came with a front sump oil pan, has a hole in the middle of it. If you want more details and specifics on this motor, check out the video link above where I walk through kind of the specifics of the 8 years that this motor was produced. But first, we need to drain the oil. I grabbed a 14 and a 15. I'm not sure what size it is. Probably a 15. So we just got a drain plug here on the front. Oh boy, that guy's on there tight. Whew. Okay, so let's drain this out. See what this oil looks like. I don't have high hopes. Oh yeah. That's pretty dark. But hey, some oil is better than no oil, right? Regardless if it's not the best looking stuff you've ever seen. So we'll go ahead and let this drain out, and then we need to take all of the bolts, pan bolts out. I think this thing's got what appears to be about 25 oil pan bolts, but we'll get those dudes out. I'll probably go ahead and take the oil filter off too, just so it's out of our way. And then we'll get the cherry picker out and start putting this on there with the transmission. All right, this dude's still draining a little bit out, but I think we're far enough along that we can just go ahead and plug that up. Now this has been on the stand for long enough that I'm hoping when I pull the oil pan off, it doesn't make a giant mess. I'll probably go grab one of my sheet pan thing to sit under here, try to keep my floor from becoming covered in oil. And for the time being, I'm probably just gonna leave this guy on here. I don't think it'll really be in our way much. If it is, we can take it off later. Not a big deal. One of the really cool things about this motor is the way that they cast the block. They use a like a lost foam style procedure, and essentially they build the whole block out of foam, fill it with sand, compact it down, and then when it gets put in to the manufacturing process, the foam actually just kind of melts away, and you're left with this open casing that gets filled with aluminum. And then the reason it's interesting to me is that when you look real close, you can see it almost looks like a styrofoam cooler that you would buy out of like the gas station or something. But the neat thing about that is yeah, it's all one piece, and there's no, because it's set up that way, there's no reason to come in and drill holes and galleyways or whatever after the fact. So I think it leads to it being a much stronger block. Also, if you look real close, there are oil drains all the way down each side that come back to the bottom of the pan, and it's a little bit more obvious when the pan's off, but it creates this really strong structure down each side, and I believe it's on both sides of the block, around each side of the cylinder. So very, very strong, and it's aluminum, so you know, it helps with some of the weight. I don't know, I'm just excited. It's a really cool motor. It's a really cool platform, a really cool motor that I'm excited to learn about and kind of share with you guys what I learned along the way. people have made good power with them, and we're not trying to, you know, make any kind of crazy drag racing monster or nothing, but I think a 600 horsepower straight six with a turbo on it and a 5-speed is going to be a lot of fun. So, all right, enough talk. Let's get this oil pan off here. Try not to make too much of a mess. 13 millimeter. Let's start them. So it looks like very similar to the LS. This motor has a front and rear cover that has a few additional smaller, probably 10 millimeter bolts holding the oil pan on. Also, you can probably see it real quick right here. When I put this on the engine stand, the bottom 2 bolts in the oil pan actually bolt onto the transmission as well. And I have those on the stand, so this won't come off where it's currently on the stand. I left a few bolts in it, but as you can see, there's, I mean, I don't know why there's so many, but that's not even all of them. 50 millimeter bolts, ton of them. So I think the next step is going to be, let's go ahead and get this up on the cherry picker hanging in the air. That way we can get these last 2 bolts out of the back here, because obviously it's not going to come out there. And then we've got a few of the smaller ones still left. So we'll get it hanging in the air, do that, and then we can finally get the pan off of it. And at that point, we might be able to take a look at the bottom of it. I went ahead and took the fuel rail off because that little regulator piece that sits up here was probably going to hit with this. I wanted to put my adjustable piece on here so we could kind of do a little bit of an angle to get it to slide in there, because again, this is the first time I'm putting this in and I have no idea what it's gonna do. So we've got this on here, we've got the cherry picker hooked up. I think now I'm gonna raise it up and we'll go ahead and take it off the stand and get the rest of that pan off. So now that the fuel rail is out, but I tell you, this motor is dirty. I think it had 180,000 miles on it, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember exactly how many, but she needs a little bit of TLC. Valve cover gaskets clearly been leaking. The intake ports are just full of gunk. Honestly, I'm surprised it ran as well as it did, but that's what I hear. These things are beasts. I did get one O-ring in here I got to take out, but otherwise, not too bad. Yeah, so something different about this motor is the fuel rail actually bolts to the head, and the injectors are actually based inside the head as well, right inside the last bit of the runner before it drops down to the chamber. So that's not really standard. You know, a lot of times your fuel injectors are going to be located in your intake manifold. The positive thing about this is if we decide to do a side mount intake manifold instead of going over the top like the plastic factory piece, it makes it really easy because you don't have to worry about injector bungs and all that. Additionally, if you start making a lot of power, it does make it easy to add a second set onto the intake like a normal intake would be, and then you've already got a set in the head, so you can run 2 sets of injectors pretty easy on this, but it also makes changing out the intake manifold pretty simple as well. So a nice little sidebar there. Let's get this thing off the engine stand, get that pan out. All right. So let's get this stand off. Move it out of our way. I think I set this over top of the dowels. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. I'm gonna let it down a little bit. It is a little wobbly. And let's get this pan off here. The remaining bolts are the 10 millimeter. Slide this drip pan under. Switch over to our 10. Perfect. I think I'm gonna grab the back ones first. Looks like there's 2 on the back behind the flex plate here. Yeah, and see there are these, I know if you guys can see that, but they're the real skinny 10mm bolts, very similar to LS. You know, when these were getting started in 2002, let's see, I think that's when the LS1 was getting faded out, if it hadn't already been. Well, the Camaro went to 2002, so they were still in LS1, but at that point, the Corvette was already onto the LS2 platform, and going even further past that, once this was, you know, being developed and manufactured. So lots of similarities, you know, similar bolts. It's all metric stuff, just lots of stuff that reminds me of the LS. There's lots of guys you find that are moving into these that probably have history with the LS like myself. So obviously it's a new platform, but at the same time, it almost feels familiar. And to be truthful with you, this oil pan is held on with just RTV. It doesn't have a pan gasket like the LS does. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have to pry this thing off anyways. So the back had the two long skinny bolts, and the front just has the smaller, three smaller 10 mils. All right, so yeah, that's the pan. I think all the bolts are off. Let me grab a pry bar and probably a hammer too. Let's see if we can get this dude off here. Oh, that wasn't bad at all. Cool. There we go. Boom. That is a huge oil pan. You know, being 6 cylinders long, you know, I'm used to LS stuff, which although it has 2 more cylinders, being a V, it's really only about, you know, that long. It's kind of 4.5 cylinders, if you will. So you got another cylinder and a half plus that is just adds so much more to the weight on this. So, okay. Well, the oil pan is off. We're gonna go ahead and probably take the pickup tube off as well because it's not needed. See, like I was saying, the front sump, we won't need this. It's just kind of hanging down and in our way. So it looks like there's a 10mm bolt on the front here. Pull that little dude out. And then, I can't remember which year is which. I think some years have an O-ring similar to the LS, and some have just a standard gasket. So we'll see which one this is. Okay, have to wiggle this dude loose. Yep, so this is the O-ring style, just like that. And I know I keep talking about the LS, but I'll have to capture it. That's nice. So we'll just drop that dude in there. Yeah, on our rear wheel drive application, we just can't use a front sump oil pan. I mean, I guess in our application with the Mustang, like on the 240 from the factory, they are front sump. So the oil pan that was in the car was a front sump. A lot of people use a GTO oil pan, which is also front sump. You know, there's lots of cars out there that use them, but in our Mustang application, that's not going to be the case. So like I said, we're going to be cutting up and extending the 5-cylinder pan. We'll be extending the rear pickup. The pickup I have right now probably only goes to about here. We need it to be a bit further. I believe we have to relocate the dipstick because there is, in the 4200, the dipstick goes in through the block, and on the 5-cylinder, I believe it goes in through the pan. So we'll have to, I believe, notch a little bit out of here, and it'll sit there. So these are modifications that'll be coming up later on. Today's video is really just showing you how this stuff bolts together and kind of just a first test fit into the Mustang. One of the other awesome things about this motor is there is a main girdle that connects all of the mains from front to back. So right there on the back, all the way across the front, you've got a solid main girdle, which is pretty sweet. And then I was talking about how the way this is manufactured, you can see it a lot easier on this side, these channels, which flows the oil back down and actually keeps it separated so it doesn't hit the crank. It actually flows down these little pockets. You can see there's a pocket all the way down. So it really just adds more rigidity and structure to this whole thing. I mean, really what I've seen so far as like failure points on these, I think has just been, I think pistons. The crank is forged. This specific motor, like I mentioned in the prior video, is a full 12 counterweight crank, so it's happy. The rods are actually very similar-ish to Gen 4 rods. I mean, think about it, at this point, 2003, Gen 4 stuff starting to come out. These rods are very similar, so it's kind of a LS-ish style rod. But I think the main issue is the pistons when it starts coming to power. I could be wrong, don't quote me on that. But we got a company, Wiseco, who is going to start putting something out there off the shelf. And that could really open up a lot of doors for people. For me personally, these things make 700, 800 stock. I plan on only making 5 or 6 because that little transmission over there is only going to handle that much. And I'm not really looking to build another 1,000+ horsepower car at the moment. You never know what the future holds, but for right now, I just want to have a car that I can get in, bang gears, because, you know, if you don't have a stick shift, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, had to throw that in there. But yeah, stick shift, turbo, 6-cylinder, rear-wheel drive Mustang. It's going to be fun. Tire fryer, drift the corners. All right, I've rambled long enough. Let's lower this down low enough that we can bolt this transmission on, because that's the part that we're all here for, right? Bolt this transmission on. So let me set you guys back on the tripod, lower this dude down, let's look at that. The 4L60 that comes behind this has a removable bell housing because the pattern on the Atlas is very specific. It doesn't match anything else. So your option is the 4L60 with the removable bell housing or the AR5 as far as direct swaps. The 4L60 is, well, it's shit. So we wanted the 5-speed. Now there is a plate, an adapter plate that a few people sell that you can bolt on here and get the LS small block pattern. And then at that point, you know, you can put a 400 behind it, Power Glide, 4L80, T56, Magnum, whatever. Obviously I wanted to do a manual, and right now 6-speed is just kind of out of the question. All right, enough talk. Let's watch me struggle to get this on here. Yeah, definitely gonna, let's try to go a little lower. Okay, there we go. I am slightly out of breath. Pause real quick. If you guys are enjoying this build, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel now while we're early enough into the build that you can watch it all. I try to put out a video every Wednesday around noon, lunchtime. Your lunch break, check out our videos. Also, be sure to like this one and comment below. Questions about the build, about the motor, anything. I'm really good at answering. I'm a small channel. It costs nothing for you guys to sub and comment, and I really appreciate it. This YouTube stuff is fun, but it is tough to get anywhere as a small channel. But we're having a good time with it. So let's keep it going. Okay, so we've got her up off the ground, floating in air. Boy, it looks like a beast. I mean, it is a long setup from front of engine to the back of the transmission. It's got to be a longer setup than what was in the Mustang to begin with. Either way, super excited to see it together. It's pretty neat. Obviously, it's going to come apart in and out of the engine bay a handful of times. But this is where I'm going to leave it for tonight. I've got to move some stuff around, bring the 240 back in here. I only got a small two-car garage right now, so I don't have a lot of space, and I want to leave the 240 outside. So we're going to move stuff around, and then we come back. It'll be the next day, and our buddy Todd should be here. So see you tomorrow. All right, it is the next day, nice and sunny out. Get a chance to start putting this thing together. We've got the motor sitting on the ground over here, bolted up the transmission. Nice, garage doors are open, nice and sunny out. So I was thinking I was gonna have to take the hood off, but it looks like I can actually prop this hood up kind of all the way. Unlike the 240, it can only go so far. So I think I'll just put a longer prop rod on that and should give us plenty of room to dive in there. I don't know if Todd Lee's gonna come over or not. So it might just be a one-man band right now. But if he does come over, that'd be a big help. Let's take a look. I've got the Colorado pan just sitting in there. So let me show you guys kind of how that looks. So again, that's just a 5-cylinder pan. if we were putting a 5-cylinder in, we'd be perfect, because it's just like lines up perfect with the firewall, sits on top of the K-member in the rack. But we're gonna have to go out another few inches for the 6-cylinder. But I think that's gonna give you a rough idea of what we're looking at. It's not too bad. So I'm gonna wheel this around over the front of here, set you guys up on the tripod, and you can watch me struggle to try to properly drop this in. Well, I think I missed the entire, messed up the camera and didn't get the dropping the engine in, so you guys didn't get to see it, but here we are. So let's get some angle out of this. I mean, I literally had a piece of paper of room to get through here. So in the future, I think cutting this and making it removable is going to be the play. Hey, kind of just naturally fell back into place. Very nice. Okay, so let's just go even further in with it. I mean, really, that's probably about where it's gonna sit. That's probably about it. Now we got the wrong angle. All right, let me grab my stuff here and get you guys a little bit closer look. Okay. So here we are right now. The way this thing sits, we are all the way up on the firewall there. Got a bit of an angle. Let me show you what the transmission's sitting like right now. So there's where our shifter goes. I guess if we had to, we could notch it a little bit, because I really don't think we're gonna get this motor any further back, but it fits in the transmission tunnel. As far as that goes, it's not terrible. Of course, I don't have the plastics in there to see where it really sits. There's my boy Zeus. Come here, Zeus. Come here, buddy. Nope, in camera shy today. So yeah, I mean, it definitely has a bit of an angle to it that I feel like is not going to work. And it looks like it's sitting on, let's see if we can get a look at it. It looks like it's sitting right now on the steering rack. So I feel like if I lower the steering rack with the offset bushings, that'll give us some more room. And then just dropping the K-member down with spacers is going to drop it down even more. Right, so got the rack unbolted down there. You can see it. Running these offset bushings, and they were in the up position, so we're going to flip them around. So now that'll lower the rack for us. Should be perfect. All right, so the engine is just chilling behind me in the engine bay. This isn't even doing anything. I got the rack lowered with the offset bushings. This side is fine, tightens up. The issue we run into is on the driver's side. Let's see if I can snake the camera down in there. So it's actually hitting the cross member right there, and we're about a 1/4 inch short of tightening it up. So I've got length in the steering rod to move the rack out some. So I might just have to get some spacers, a couple big washers or something. I'm thinking a couple big washers and just space it out a little bit, because dropping the rack definitely gives us more room. But we're gonna definitely still for sure have to put in the K-member spacers to drop this down. If nothing else, just to get it level, a bit more level set in the engine bay, because right now it's still got that angle. So, I mean, really that's about all I can do today, I think. One of the other things I'm gonna do is I'm probably gonna cut this somewhere and make this removable, whether I like cut it and then weld a tab underneath and put some rib nuts in the tab that's welded, and then this just sits on it and there's 2 bolts to hold it in place. I'm not sure, maybe some button heads or something, and I just you know, drill some holes in that plastic cover. That way, you know, you can get to the screws, they're not causing the cover to sit up, so that still covers this and looks nice. But without this here, this would be extremely easier, much more easier to get that dude out. But we really can't go any lower because the transmission is hitting the tunnel. So I think that's what we have to do. So just to recap, we've got our 4.2 in the engine bay of the Mustang, along with the transmission. And I'll show you guys one more time what that looks like. So right now where things sit, there's our shifter. Somebody does make an offset shifter, like put it further back. So that may be an option, but I was hoping we could get away with just utilizing the stock hole, which I still think it'll be okay. Let me show you what we got underneath. So right now, you can see there's really not any room for an oil pan where the rack is. So that extra inch is essentially going to be the oil pan. I don't know, that's going to be tough. But, I mean, every little bit that we can add to it to get it level is going to be nice. I think this engine can probably run. Most engines can sit at like a 3 degrees, so we get a little bit of that out, we'll be fine. I mean, it probably looks like more too because the car is kind of sitting up with no engine. So, anyways, super excited that we got it in there. This thing's going to be in and out multiple times. There's just, you know, it's just all part of it. Okay, one more thing before we go. I'm kind of jumping around. This side, let's look at the mounts. So what I'm thinking is, take this off, we get plates made, just flat plates, flat plate on this, and we do just like a 2-inch round stock bar that just bolts in here. So as you're sliding this in, just boom, bolts, 4 bolts. Let me show you from the driver's side. It's a lot easier to see what I'm talking about. There's a lot more room over here. So if we unbolt this and do a flat plate across here, right? Flat plate on the bottom, and then we just take a tube, you know, something like the size of this water neck, and just straight angle, just boom, straight across there. I don't know if that makes sense, but I promise you it will once I sort it out. You can see they're just offset. It's engines here, cradles here, so we just need like a, you know, some kind of tube this way, which I think that would be fine. Something nice and sturdy, 4 bolts on the block. You know, we can do all 3 of these. You know, this hole here is kind of a locator, and then 2 here, and got a little bit of movement. So I think that'll work. So a couple of washers, space out the rack. That drop down gives us extra room. Firewall wise, I mean, we're up on it, but we got a little bit of space. That's probably about as far back as we're gonna go. Plenty of space up here for the radiator. I don't even think I'm gonna have to tuck it like I originally thought. I mean, there's still front of the engine, you know, 7 inches. So even if you did, you know, 2-inch thick radiator and a fan, should be fine. So not the best outro I've had, but if you guys are enjoying this, make sure you're subscribed, you got those notifications on. Drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. I think it's gonna be awesome, but I'm kind of like on this roller coaster of up and down trying to figure it out. Still some things to overcome, but it's working out. So as always, thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate the support, and we'll catch you on the next one.